I am Clara, 32F. My husband was Mark, 34M. We were married for 5 years. For 5 years, I tried to be the perfect daughter-in-law. I tried to win over his mother, Eleanor. I tried to be friends with his sister, Brenda. It never worked. They saw me as an outsider. They treated me with a coldness that chilled me to my bones. Mark always told me I was imagining it. He said his family loved me. He said I needed to try harder. So I tried harder. I cooked their favorite meals. I bought them expensive gifts. I remembered every birthday and anniversary. I smiled through their backhanded compliments. I ignored their subtle insults. I did it all for Mark. I loved him. I thought he loved me too. I thought we were a team. I was wrong. The truth came out on New Year's Eve. It came out in the cruelest way possible. We were at his parents' house for their annual party. The house was filled with their friends and family. Everyone was laughing and drinking champagne. The big clock on the mantelpiece ticked closer to midnight. Eleanor stood next to it, beaming. She loved being the center of attention. She raised her glass. "Just a few moments left," she announced. "Time to think about our New Year's resolutions." People chuckled. Someone shouted about losing weight. Someone else yelled about traveling more. Mark stood beside me. He put his arm around my waist. He felt tense. I looked up at him. His smile was tight. It did not reach his eyes. I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach. Something was wrong. "What about you, Mark?" Eleanor called out. "What's your resolution for the new year?" Her voice was bright and cheerful, but her eyes, fixed on her son, held a strange intensity. It felt like a performance, like they had rehearsed this moment. Mark took a deep breath. He squeezed my waist. His hand was cold. He looked around the room at all the smiling faces. Then he looked down at me. For a second, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it regret? I could not be sure. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. He turned his gaze back to his mother. He raised his own glass. The room went quiet. Everyone was waiting. "My resolution," Mark said, his voice loud and clear. "My resolution is to finally get a divorce." The words hit me like a physical blow. The air left my lungs. The room started to spin. I must have misheard him. I had to have misheard him. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, waiting for him to say it was a joke. A terrible, horrible joke. He did not laugh. Instead, his family cheered. A loud, ugly, triumphant cheer. Eleanor clapped her hands together, her face alight with pure joy. Brenda whooped and raised her glass to her brother. His father, George, smiled and patted Mark on the back. They were all so happy. Their happiness was a poison dart aimed straight at my heart. The clock began to chime. Midnight. "Happy New Year!" someone screamed. The room erupted. People were hugging and kissing. Confetti popped. No one seemed to notice my world had just shattered. Or if they did not care. I stood frozen in the middle of it all. Mark had already moved away from me. He was being hugged by his sister. They were celebrating. They were celebrating the end of my marriage. The end of my life as I knew it. I felt a hand on my arm. It was Eleanor. She leaned in close. Her perfume was cloying. "Isn't it wonderful, dear?" she whispered in my ear. "A fresh start for everyone." Her voice was dripping with false sweetness. I pulled my arm away from her. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. The mask was gone. All I could see was the ugly triumph in her eyes. She had won. She had finally gotten rid of me. I turned and looked for Mark. He was across the room laughing with a cousin. He glanced over at me. Our eyes met. He looked away immediately. Shame. He was a coward. A weak, spineless coward who let his mother announce the end of our marriage at a party. My shock started to fade. It was replaced by a cold, hard anger. It was a feeling so intense it burned away my tears. They wanted a show. They wanted to humiliate me. They wanted to see me break down and cry. I would not give them the satisfaction. I straightened my back. I smoothed down my dress. I walked through the crowd. People moved out of my way. They were staring at me with pity. I did not want their pity. I wanted to erase the smug looks from his family's faces. I walked right up to Mark. His smile faltered when he saw me coming. "Can we talk?" I asked. My voice was surprisingly steady. "Clara, not now," he said, avoiding my eyes. "It's a party." "You ended our marriage at a party," I said. "I think we can talk at a party." His cousin muttered something and walked away. We were alone in our little bubble of misery. "What was that, Mark?" I asked. "What in the world was that?" "It's what's best, Clara," he said. He still would not look at me. "We haven't been happy for a while." "We haven't been happy?" I repeated. The words tasted like ash. "You never said you were unhappy. You said you loved me this morning." "Things change," he mumbled. "Things do not change in 12 hours. I shot back. "This was planned. You planned this with them." I glanced over at his mother and sister. They were watching us. They were whispering to each other, smiling. They were enjoying my pain. That was when I knew I could not just leave. I could not just crawl away and hide. I had to fight back. Not for my marriage. That was already dead. I had to fight for myself. My mind started working. I thought about our life together, our finances, our secrets. I had been a good wife, a trusting wife. I had let him handle the money. We had a joint savings account. It was for a down payment on a house, our dream house. The money was my inheritance from my grandmother. It was a lot of money. A sudden terrifying thought hit me. I looked at Mark, his cowardice, his family's glee. This was not just about ending the marriage. This was about something else. "The house fund," I said. My voice was barely a whisper. "Mark, the money for our house." He finally looked at me, and in his eyes I saw it. Guilt. Pure, unadulterated guilt. My heart stopped. "What did you do?" I asked. "Clara, we can talk about this later," he said, trying to take my arm. I snatched it away. "No, we will talk about this now. What did you do with the money?" "It's safe," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Where is it?" I demanded. "It's invested," he said. "For us. For the future." "For whose future? Mark?" I asked. "Yours? Your mother's?" He flinched. I had hit a nerve. The anger inside me grew hotter. I knew with absolute certainty that the money was gone. And they had taken it. All of them. This was not just a divorce. This was a robbery. I looked from Mark's guilty face to his mother's triumphant one. They thought they had won. They thought they had taken everything from me. My husband, my dignity, my future, my money. They had made a very big mistake. They had underestimated me. I turned away from Mark without another word. I walked to the front door. I could feel every eye in the room on me. I did not care. Let them watch. As I opened the door, I heard Eleanor call out, "Don't forget your coat, dear," she said, her voice full of fake concern. "It's a cold night." I paused in the doorway. I turned back to look at them. Mark, standing there looking pathetic. Eleanor and Brenda, standing side by side like two vultures. I gave them a small, cold smile. "You're right, Eleanor," I said. "It is going to be a very cold year. For some of you." Then I walked out into the night. I did not have my coat. I did not have my purse. But I had something more important. I had a purpose. They had started a war. I was going to finish it. The walk home was a blur. The cold air did nothing to cool the fire raging inside me. My mind was racing. Every lie Mark had ever told me. every snide comment from Eleanor, every smirk from Brenda. It was all clicking into place. This was not a sudden decision. This was a conspiracy. They had been planning this for months, maybe years. I got to our apartment. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the lock. I stepped inside. The apartment was quiet. It was filled with our things, our pictures, our life. It all felt like a lie. I went straight to the office. I turned on our shared laptop. My heart was pounding in my chest. I was terrified of what I would find. I was even more terrified of finding nothing. I logged into our online banking portal. I navigated to the joint savings account, the account where my grandmother's inheritance was supposed to be. The balance was $112. I stared at the number. It did not make sense. It could not be right. There was supposed to be over $200,000 in that account. I clicked on the transaction history. My breath hitched. 1 week ago. A single transaction. A wire transfer. For the exact amount of my inheritance. Transferred to an account I did not recognize. My blood ran cold. He had done it. He had actually done it. He had stolen my money. Tears pricked my eyes. Not tears of sadness. Tears of pure, unadulterated rage. How could he? How could anyone be so cruel? I took a deep breath. Crying would not help me. I needed to think. I needed a plan. I looked at the details of the wire transfer. The receiving account was in the name of a corporation, a limited liability company I had never heard of. This was not a simple transfer to his personal account. This was more sophisticated. This was planned. I searched the company name online. The search results were sparse. It was a new company, registered just 1 month ago. The registered agent was a law firm I did not recognize. But the address listed for the company headquarters was very familiar. It was Brenda's address. I felt a wave of nausea. His sister was in on it. Of course she was. She had always been jealous of me. She saw me as competition for Mark's attention and resources. This was not just Mark's betrayal. It was his entire family. They had conspired together to ruin me. I leaned back in the chair. The scope of their treachery was breathtaking. They did not just want me gone. They wanted me destitute. They wanted to make sure I had nothing, so I could not fight back. So I would be forced to crawl away in shame. I thought about calling a lawyer, but it was after midnight on New Year's Day. No one would be working. I was on my own. For now, I needed more proof. I needed to know the full extent of their plan. My mind went to our shared cloud storage. We saved everything there. Photos, documents, old files. Maybe there was something there. Some clue I had missed. I started digging. I went through old folders, vacation photos, tax documents. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I was about to give up. Then I saw it. A folder labeled Projects. I had never seen it before. It was hidden inside another folder full of boring work files. My hand trembled as I clicked on it. The folder contained a single document, a business plan. I opened it. The title of the document was Eleanor's Emporium, A Family Legacy. I started reading. It was a detailed plan for a new business, a high-end boutique selling home goods and antiques. It was Eleanor's dream. She had talked about it for years. But she always said she did not have the money to start it. Now she did. She had my money. I scrolled down to the financial projections. The startup capital required was listed clearly. It was the exact amount that had been taken from my savings account. I scrolled further. I found the section on company structure. Eleanor was listed as the chief executive officer. Mark was the chief financial officer. And Brenda was the chief operating officer. My name was nowhere in the document. But there was a small section near the end. It was titled Risk Mitigation. I read the words, and my blood turned to ice. Primary risk is the dissolution of M's marriage to CC's inheritance is the source of initial funding. A clean break is necessary to secure assets. The family lawyer has advised a strategy to minimize C's claims. The public announcement of the separation will apply maximum emotional pressure on C, encouraging a quick and favorable settlement. The goal is to finalize the divorce before C becomes aware of the asset transfer. I read the paragraph again. And again. It was all there. In black and white. A premeditated plot to steal my money and use a humiliating public divorce to cover their tracks. They thought I would be too emotional, too broken to think clearly. They thought I would just sign whatever papers they put in front of me to make the pain go away. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The rage that had been simmering inside me erupted into a cold, clear focus. The hurt was still there, a deep, aching wound in my chest. But now, it was fuel. I printed the business plan. I printed the bank statement. I took screenshots of everything. I saved copies to a new, secure cloud account that Mark had no access to. I created a new email address. I sent all the evidence to myself. I was building my arsenal. This was no longer just about getting my money back. This was about justice. This was about making them pay for what they had done. Not just to me, but to the memory of my grandmother. They had stolen her legacy. They had spit on her grave. I would not let them get away with it. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the monitor on my face. The party at Eleanor's house was probably still going on. They were probably toasting their success, toasting their cleverness. Let them celebrate. Their victory would be short-lived. I knew what I had to do. I needed help, not just a lawyer. I needed someone I could trust completely. I picked up my phone. I scrolled through my contacts. I stopped at one name. Maya, my best friend since college. She was smart, she was tough, and she was a forensic accountant. I dialed her number. It was almost 2 a.m. I did not care. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was groggy. "Clara, is everything okay?" she asked. "No," I said, my voice cracking for the first time that night. "Nothing is okay. I need your help." I told her everything. The announcement at the party, the cheering, the missing money, the business plan. I told her about the cold, calculating cruelty of it all. She listened patiently. She did not interrupt. When I was finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Maya, are you there?" I asked. "I'm here," she said. Her voice was no longer groggy. It was sharp. "Okay, Clara, here is what we are going to do. First, you are going to get some sleep. You need to be rested for what comes next." "I can't sleep," I said. "My mind is racing." "I know," she said gently. "But you have to try. They want you to be emotional and exhausted. We are not going to give them that. We are going to be calm and methodical." She was right. I had to get control of myself. "Second," she continued, "do not talk to Mark. Do not talk to any of his family. Do not answer their calls. Do not respond to their texts. Complete silence. Understood?" "Understood," I said. "Good. Third, I am booking a flight. I will be there tomorrow afternoon. We will go through all of this evidence together, and we will find you the most ruthless divorce lawyer in the city." A wave of relief washed over me. I was not alone anymore. "Maya, thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me yet," she said. Her voice was grim. "These people have declared war, Clara. We are going to make sure they lose. Now go to bed." I hung up the phone. I did what she said. I went into the bedroom, our bedroom. I looked at the bed we had shared. I could not sleep there. Not tonight. I went to the guest room. I lay down on the bed. I closed my eyes. Sleep did not come. Instead, I saw their faces, Mark's weakness, Eleanor's joy, Brenda's smirk. They thought they had broken me. They were wrong. They had just woken me up. The next morning, I woke up with a stiff neck and a clear head. The events of the previous night felt like a nightmare. But the cold reality of it was undeniable. I looked at my phone. There were 3 missed calls from Mark, and a string of text messages. "Clara, we need to talk. Please answer your phone. I'm sorry about how that happened. It wasn't supposed to be like that. My mom got carried away." That last message made me laugh. A bitter, humorless laugh. His mom got carried away. He was still making excuses for her, still protecting her, even now. I followed Maya's instructions. I did not respond. I got up and made myself a pot of coffee. As I sat at the kitchen table, my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello? Is this Clara?" A woman's voice asked. She sounded professional. "Yes, it is," I said. "My name is Anita Singh. I'm a lawyer. Your friend Maya contacted me this morning. She gave me a brief overview of your situation. I specialize in high-conflict divorces and financial fraud." I was stunned. Maya worked fast. "She certainly does," I said. "I've looked at the documents she forwarded to me," Anita continued. "The bank statement and the business plan. This is not just a divorce, Clara. This is criminal. What your husband and his family have done is called fraudulent conveyance. They have conspired to hide marital assets in anticipation of a divorce. The courts do not look kindly on that. At all." Hearing a legal expert confirm my suspicions was validating. It made my anger feel justified. "What happens now?" I asked. "First, we need to protect you and what's left," Anita said. "I want you to go to your bank. Open a new account in your name only. Then, I want you to transfer half of the money from any remaining joint accounts into your new account. Do you have a joint credit card?" "Yes," I said. "Cancel it," she said. "Immediately. We need to cut off all financial ties. The next thing we will do is file an emergency motion with the court. We will ask a judge to freeze their assets. All of them. Mark's personal accounts, his mother's, his sister's, and the account for their little shell company." "Can we do that?" I asked, a flicker of hope igniting within me. "We can, and we will," Anita said firmly. "They used your inheritance as seed money. That money is traceable. We can show the court exactly where it went. The judge will not be happy. They thought they were being clever. They were just being greedy. And greedy people make mistakes." Her confidence was contagious. I felt a surge of strength. "I have a consultation slot open this afternoon at 3, she said. "Can you make it?" "Yes," I said. "I'll be there." "Good. And Clara? One more thing. Do not, under any circumstances, leave the apartment. It's your marital home. If you leave, they could claim you abandoned the property. Stay put. You have every right to be there." "What if Mark comes home?" I asked, my anxiety returning. "He won't," Anita said, "because the first thing I'm going to do after we hang up is send him a letter. It will inform him that I am your legal counsel. It will instruct him that all future communication must go through my office, and it will strongly advise him to find a new place to stay pending the outcome of the divorce proceedings." I was in awe. This woman was a warrior. "Okay," I said, my voice filled with newfound resolve. "I understand." After the call, I felt like I could breathe again. I had a team. I had a plan. The feeling of helplessness was gone. It was replaced by a cold, determined calm. I spent the next few hours following Anita's instructions. I went to the bank. I opened my new account. I transferred my half of the small amount of money left in our joint checking account. I called the credit card company and canceled our card. Each action felt like I was taking back a piece of my life, a piece of my power. When I got back to the apartment, I started packing. Not my things, his things. I found boxes in the storage closet. I carefully packed all of his clothes, his books, his gadgets. I was methodical and detached. I did not shed a single tear. I felt nothing but a sense of purpose. When I was done, I stacked the boxes neatly by the front door. The apartment already felt different. It felt lighter. It felt like mine. Maya arrived just after noon. She hugged me tightly. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her eyes full of concern. "I'm better," I said. "I'm angry, but I'm not sad anymore." "Good," she said. "Anger is a motivator. Sadness just makes you want to eat ice cream in your pajamas. We don't have time for that." We spent the next hour going over the evidence again. Maya, with her accountant's eye, pointed out things I had missed. The business plan had a timeline. They had planned to launch the boutique in the spring. They were already scouting locations. They had even made a deposit on a retail space, using my money. "They are so arrogant," Maya said, shaking her head. "They really thought you would just roll over." "They don't know me at all," I said. "No, they don't," she agreed. "But they're about to." At 2:30, we left for the lawyer's office. Walking into Anita Singh's office felt like walking into a fortress. It was sleek and modern and radiated power. Anita was even more impressive in person. She was sharp and direct. She wasted no time on small talk. "Let's get to work," she said, ushering us into her conference room. We spent 2 hours with her. She asked me detailed questions about my marriage, my finances, and Mark's family. I told her everything. About Eleanor's constant criticism, about Brenda's jealousy, about Mark's refusal to ever stand up for me. "This is a classic case of familial alienation and financial abuse," Anita said when I was done. "Mark may be your husband, but his primary loyalty is to his mother. She is the one pulling the strings." "She always has been," I said. "Well, we are about to cut those strings," Anita said with a grim smile. "I've already drafted the emergency motion. We are asking the judge to freeze all of their known assets and to grant you exclusive use of the marital home. We are also filing for divorce on the grounds of fraud and dissipation of assets." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means we are not just asking for half of the remaining assets," she explained. "We are asking the court to award you the full amount of money that was stolen from you, plus damages, plus your legal fees. We are going to argue that their actions were so egregious that a simple 50-50 split is not equitable." I looked at Maya. She gave me a small, encouraging nod. "They did this on New Year's Eve," Anita continued, her voice filled with contempt. "They did it publicly to maximize your humiliation. That kind of malicious behavior will not play well with a judge. They wanted to make you feel small. We are going to make them feel very, very small." I left her office feeling 10 feet tall. The fear was gone. The hurt was still there, a dull ache in the background, but it was overshadowed by a fierce, burning determination. When Maya and I got back to the apartment, there was a message on the answering machine. It was Mark. His voice was frantic. "Clara, what is this? I got a letter from a lawyer. Freeze my assets? What are you doing? Call me. We can work this out. We don't need to get lawyers involved." I laughed. He did not want to get lawyers involved. Of course he did not. Lawyers would uncover his crimes. "He sounds scared," Maya said with satisfaction. "He should be," I said. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Anita filed the motions with the court. A hearing was set for the following week. In the meantime, the judge issued a temporary restraining order. Mark was forbidden from contacting me directly. And more importantly, a temporary freeze was placed on all of their bank accounts. The first sign that the freeze was working came 2 days later. I got a call from a number I did not recognize. It was my cousin-in-law, Robert. He was Mark's cousin, but he had always been kind to me. He was one of the few family members who seemed to exist outside of Eleanor's sphere of influence. "Clara, it's Robert," he said. He sounded awkward. "Listen, I'm sorry to call you. I know things are complicated right now." "It's okay, Robert," I said. "What's up?" "Something strange is going on," he said. "Aunt Eleanor called me this morning. She was in a total panic. She said her credit cards were declined. She asked to borrow money. A lot of money." I had to bite my lip to keep from smiling. "Really?" I said, trying to sound surprised. "Why?" Is she having financial trouble? I don't know, he said. She was very vague. She just kept saying it was a temporary problem, a mix-up at the bank. But she sounded desperate. It was weird. She's always the one lending money, not borrowing it. This was the first taste of victory. It was sweet. Then I got a call from Brenda, he continued. She said the deposit for her new store location bounced. The landlord is threatening to back out of the lease. She was crying. She also asked me for money. Even better. That is strange, I said, my voice laced with false concern. I hope everything is okay with them. Me too, he said. Anyway, I just thought you should know. It feels like something big is happening. And after what happened at the party, well, I'm on your side, Clara. For what it's worth. What they did was wrong. His words meant more to me than he could ever know. In a family that had shown me nothing but hostility, his small act of kindness was a lifeline. Thank you, Robert, I said, my voice thick with emotion. That means a lot. If you need anything, you let me know, he said. Eleanor has been running this family like her own personal kingdom for too long. Maybe it's time for a change. We hung up. I immediately called Maya to tell her the news. It's working, I said, unable to keep the glee out of my voice. They're panicking. Their money is frozen. Of course it's working, Maya said. Anita is a shark, and they are bleeding in the water. This is just the beginning, Clara. They are going to get much more desperate. She was right. The next day, the dam broke. My phone started ringing off the hook. Uncles, aunts, cousins. They had all gotten calls from Eleanor, Mark, or Brenda, all asking for money, all telling a different story. To one aunt, Eleanor claimed she was having a dispute with the IRS. To a cousin, Mark claimed his identity had been stolen. To another uncle, Brenda claimed her business partner had run off with her money. The lies were getting more and more frantic, and they were starting to contradict each other. The family was confused. They were starting to talk amongst themselves. The seeds of doubt were being sown. I didn't answer any of the calls. I let them all go to voicemail. I listened to the messages with a sense of grim satisfaction. The empire of lies that Eleanor had built was starting to crumble. Then I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Clara, this is George, Mark's father. Please. Eleanor is beside herself. We need to talk. This has gone too far. George, the silent enabler. The man who stood by and watched as his wife and children plotted to ruin me. He had never spoken a single word to me in my defense. Now he wanted to talk. I showed the text to Maya. What should I do? I asked. Nothing, she said. You talk to your lawyer, that's it. Let them sweat. I forwarded the text to Anita. Her reply was immediate. Do not respond. This is a good sign. It means they know they are in trouble. The pressure is working. The court hearing was scheduled for a Monday morning. I spent the weekend with Maya, preparing. She helped me pick out an outfit. A simple professional dress. Nothing flashy. We rehearsed my testimony. I had to tell the story of what happened. I had to be calm and factual. I could not let them see my anger. You are the victim here, Maya reminded me. But you are not a helpless victim. You are a survivor. That's what the judge needs to see. On the morning of the hearing, I was nervous, but I was also ready. I walked into the courthouse with Anita by my side. I felt strong. Mark was already there. He was with his lawyer. He looked terrible. He had dark circles under his eyes. He had lost weight. When he saw me, his face crumpled. He looked like he wanted to say something, but his lawyer put a hand on his arm and shook his head. Then I saw them. Eleanor and Brenda. They were sitting on a bench down the hall. They were also with a lawyer. They glared at me as I walked past. Eleanor's face was a mask of fury. Brenda looked like she had been crying for a week. Good. We all filed into the courtroom. It was a small, formal room. The judge was an older woman with sharp, intelligent eyes. She read the motion papers in front of her. Anita stood up and began to speak. She laid out the facts of the case clearly and concisely. She told the story of our marriage. She told the story of my inheritance. She showed the judge the bank statement with the massive withdrawal. "And where did the money go, counsel?" the judge asked. "It went here, Your Honor," Anita said. She placed the business plan for Eleanor's Emporium on the judge's bench. She had highlighted the relevant sections, the funding amount, the names of the officers, the risk mitigation strategy. The judge read the document. Her expression grew colder and colder. She looked up from the paper. She stared at Mark, Eleanor, and Brenda. It was a long, hard stare. I saw Eleanor flinch. "Mr. Thompson," the judge said, her voice like ice. "Is this your signature on this business plan?" Mark's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, my client—" "I am not asking you," the judge snapped. "I am asking your client, Mr. Thompson. Is this your signature?" Mark stood up. He was trembling. "Yes, Your Honor," he whispered. "And did you authorize the transfer of $200,000 from your joint savings account to fund this business?" the judge asked. "Yes, Your Honor," he said. "And was your wife, the plaintiff, aware of this transfer?" Mark hesitated. He looked at his mother. She gave him a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. We had discussed it," he stammered. "She was supportive of my family's business ventures." I could not believe it. He was lying. Right here, in a court of law. Anita was on her feet in an instant. "Objection, Your Honor. That is a blatant falsehood." "I will allow it," the judge said. "But be warned, Mr. Thompson, lying under oath is perjury. It is a felony. I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you or did you not tell your wife that you were taking her entire inheritance to start a business with your mother and sister?" The judge's eyes bored into him. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Mark looked like he was about to collapse. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked at his mother. He looked at me. Finally, he spoke. His voice was so quiet I could barely hear it. "No, Your Honor, she did not know." A gasp went through the room. Eleanor shot him a look of pure venom. Her own son had just thrown her under the bus. The judge nodded slowly. "I see." She looked down at the business plan again. She tapped her finger on the risk mitigation section. "And this plan to announce the divorce at a public party to cause Mrs. Thompson emotional distress. Was that your idea, Mr. Thompson? Or was it someone else's?" The trap was set, and he had walked right into it. Mark's face went white. He looked at his mother again. She was staring at him, her eyes wide with panic. He was trapped between the judge and his mother. It was a family decision," he mumbled. "A family decision," the judge repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "How nice. A family that conspires together." She looked at Eleanor and Brenda. "And I suppose you were both part of this family decision?" Their lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, my clients were simply acting on the advice of their son and brother." "Sit down, counsel," the judge ordered. "I am not interested in your excuses." She turned her attention back to me. Her expression softened slightly. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, "I have read your declaration. I have seen the evidence. I am so sorry for what you have been through. No one deserves to be treated this way." Tears welled up in my eyes. To be seen, to be validated. It was everything. "The court is granting your motion," the judge announced. "The temporary asset freeze will be made permanent, pending a full accounting of the marital estate. You are granted exclusive use and possession of the marital home, and I am ordering the defendants to pay your legal fees." She wasn't finished. "Furthermore," she said, her voice ringing with authority, "I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office. The evidence presented here suggests a clear case of criminal conspiracy and fraud. It will be up to them to decide whether to press charges." Eleanor let out a strangled cry. Brenda burst into tears. Mark just stood there, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "This court is adjourned," the judge said and banged her gavel. It was over. We had won. I felt Maya's hand on my shoulder. "You did it," she whispered. I turned to look at Mark's family. They were huddled together with their lawyer. They looked broken, defeated, small. Eleanor caught my eye. The hatred in her gaze was terrifying, but it was impotent. She had no power over me anymore. I turned my back on them and walked out of the courtroom. I felt like a massive weight had been lifted from my chest. I could breathe again. The fight was not over. The divorce still needed to be finalized. The district attorney still had to investigate, but I had survived the first battle. And I had won. In the weeks that followed, the full consequences of their actions began to unfold. The district attorney's office did indeed open an investigation. Mark, Eleanor, and Brenda were all formally questioned. The threat of criminal charges hung over their heads like a dark cloud. Their social circle, the one that had witnessed my humiliation on New Year's Eve, quickly abandoned them. The story of their fraud and deceit spread like wildfire. They became pariahs. The boutique, Eleanor's Emporium, was dead before it even began. The lease was lost. The dream was gone. And my money was still frozen, safe under the court's protection. Mark tried to reach out to me through his lawyer. He offered a settlement. He would give me back my inheritance if I agreed to ask the DA to drop the investigation. I told Anita to tell him no. "This is not about the money anymore," I told her. "This is about accountability." Anita smiled. "I thought you might say that." His next offer was more desperate. He would give me the inheritance, plus the house, plus alimony. He was willing to give me everything as long as he could avoid a criminal record. Again, I said no. The pressure on them was immense. Robert called me again. He told me the family was in chaos. Eleanor was a recluse. She refused to leave her house. Brenda had moved to another state to escape the shame. And George, the silent enabler, was finally finding his voice. He was furious with Eleanor. He felt she had destroyed their family and their reputation. "They are fighting all the time," Robert told me. He blames her for everything. He said she was greedy and arrogant. She blames him for not being strong enough. The cracks in their perfect family facade were turning into giant chasms. They were turning on each other. Just as I had hoped they would. Finally, Mark broke. Anita called me one afternoon. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "Mark just fired his lawyer. He wants to talk to you." "I'm not talking to him," I said immediately. "I know," she said, "but he's not asking to talk to you to negotiate. He wants to confess. He's offered to give a full confession to the district attorney. He will testify against his mother and sister. In exchange, he's hoping for leniency." I was speechless. He was going to turn on them, to save himself. "Why?" I asked. "Why now?" "Because he's terrified," Anita said. "He's facing jail time, Clara. And his mother can't protect him anymore. He's finally realized that his only way out is to tell the truth." A part of me felt a sliver of pity for him. He was weak. He had always been weak. He had allowed his mother to control him his entire life. And now he was paying the price. But the pity was quickly extinguished by the memory of his family cheering as my world fell apart. "What does this mean for me?" I asked. "It means we have all the leverage," Anita said. "With his confession, the criminal case is a slam dunk, and our divorce settlement will be whatever we want it to be." The final divorce proceedings were a formality. Mark agreed to everything. I got the full amount of my inheritance back with interest. I got the apartment and all of its contents. I got a generous alimony settlement for the next 5 years. And he was legally obligated to pay all of my legal fees. Financially, I was more secure than I had been before the marriage. But the real victory came in the criminal court. Mark, as promised, gave a full confession. He detailed the entire plan. He explained how his mother had masterminded the scheme. How she had convinced him that I didn't deserve the money. How she had coached him on what to say and do. His testimony was damning. Eleanor and Brenda tried to fight it. Their lawyer argued that they were manipulated by Mark, that they were just trying to help their beloved son and brother. No one bought it. The business plan, with Eleanor's name plastered all over it, was undeniable proof of her involvement. In the end, the judge delivered the verdict. Mark, because of his cooperation, received a lighter sentence. 5 years of probation and 500 hours of community service. He avoided jail time, but he would have a criminal record for the rest of his life. Brenda was found guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud. She was sentenced to 1 year in prison. And Eleanor, the mastermind, the matriarch. She received the harshest sentence of all. She was found guilty of fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. She was sentenced to 3 years in a state prison. I was in the courtroom when the sentences were read. I watched as Eleanor's face crumpled in disbelief. The powerful, untouchable queen of the family was going to jail. I saw her look at Mark. The hatred in her eyes was so pure, so intense, it was almost frightening. She had lost everything. Her reputation, her freedom, and her son. I felt no joy. I felt no satisfaction. I just felt a profound sense of closure. It was over. After the sentencing, I walked out of the courthouse and into the sunshine. Maya was there waiting for me. She wrapped me in a hug. "It's done," she said. "It's done," I repeated. I felt a sense of peace I had not felt in a long, long time. My life started over. I sold the apartment. It held too many bad memories. I bought a small house in a different part of the city, a place that was just mine. I started my own consulting business. I was good at what I did. I worked hard, and I thrived. I heard snippets of news about them from time to time. Robert kept me updated. George had divorced Eleanor while she was in prison. He sold the family home and moved away. He wanted nothing more to do with her. Brenda served her time and was released. She never returned to our city. I heard she was working a low-wage job somewhere in the Midwest. Mark tried to rebuild his life, but his felony conviction made it hard to find a good job. He was struggling. He sent me a letter once. It was full of apologies and regret. He said he was a different person now. He asked if we could meet for coffee. I threw the letter in the trash. One day, about 2 years after the divorce, I was having lunch with Maya. We were celebrating a big contract I had just landed. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings," I echoed. As we were talking, I saw a familiar face across the restaurant. It was Robert. He was with a woman I didn't recognize. He saw me and smiled. He came over to our table. "Clara," he said warmly. "It's so good to see you. You look amazing." "You too, Robert," I said. "How have you been?" "Never better," he said. "The family is quieter now. It's much more peaceful." We chatted for a few minutes. He introduced me to his girlfriend. She was lovely. As he was about to leave, he hesitated. "I probably shouldn't tell you this," he said, "but Eleanor was released from prison last week." I felt a slight jolt, but not of fear. Just curiosity. "Oh?" I said. "Yeah," he said, shaking his head. "She's living in a small apartment above a garage. She has nothing. No money. No friends. George won't speak to her. Mark won't speak to her. She's completely alone." He paused, then added, "She called me, asking for money again. I told her no." I nodded slowly. I pictured her. The proud, arrogant Eleanor, reduced to living in a garage apartment, begging for handouts. It was a fitting end. "Anyway," Robert said, "I just wanted to say hello. It's really good to see you happy, Clara." After he left, Maya looked at me. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. I thought about the humiliation of that New Year's Eve, the pain of the betrayal, the long, hard fight for justice. And I thought about Eleanor, alone in her sad little apartment. "I feel free," I said, and I smiled. A real smile, full of warmth and light. They had tried to destroy me. They had tried to take everything from me, but in the end, they had only succeeded in destroying themselves. Their greed had been their downfall. On the next New Year's Eve, I didn't go to a party. I stayed home. I opened a bottle of expensive champagne, the kind Eleanor used to love. I poured myself a glass. I sat by my window, looking out at the city lights. I thought about my resolution for the coming year. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about the past. My resolution was to be happy. And as the clock struck midnight, I raised my glass. "Happy New Year," I whispered to myself. And for the first time in a very long time, it truly was. The quiet that settled in my life after the storm was profound. It wasn't an empty quiet, but a peaceful one. The constant background noise of trying to please the unpleasable was gone. I no longer walked on eggshells. I no longer second-guessed every word I said. I could just be. My business grew steadily. My reputation for being meticulous and honest attracted clients. I found a deep satisfaction in building something that was entirely my own, from the ground up. My success was not inherited. It was earned. And that made it all the sweeter. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my marriage. My life had become so consumed with Mark and his family that I had let important relationships wither. I apologized to them. I explained what I had been through. They welcomed me back with open arms. They had missed me. I had missed them too. My friendship with Maya deepened. We were more than friends. We were sisters. We had been through a war together. She was my rock, my confidant, my partner in crime. We had a standing dinner date every Friday night. We would talk about work, about life, about everything and nothing. Those dinners became my sanctuary. One Friday, about a year after Eleanor's release, Maya brought up a topic we rarely discussed. "Have you ever thought about dating again?" she asked gently. I put down my wine glass. Honestly, not really. The thought of trusting someone like that again, it's terrifying. "I get it," she said. "But not everyone is like Mark. There are good men out there, Clara." "I know," I said. "Logically, I know that. But my heart is still bruised." "That's okay," she said. "Take all the time you need. I just don't want you to close yourself off forever because of what those monsters did to you." Her words stayed with me. Was I closing myself off? Maybe. The idea of being vulnerable with someone again was daunting, but the idea of being alone forever was also a little sad. A few weeks later, I was at a coffee shop working on a project. I was so engrossed in my work that I didn't notice the man standing by my table until he spoke. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I think you dropped this." He was holding out my wallet. I hadn't even realized it had fallen out of my bag. "Oh my gosh," I said, flustered. "Thank you so much. I didn't even notice." "No problem," he said. He had a kind smile and warm, friendly eyes. "I'm Ben, by the way." "Clara," I said, smiling back. We chatted for a few minutes. He was an architect. He was working on a design for a new library downtown. He was passionate about his work. He was interesting, and he was easy to talk to. When he was about to leave, he hesitated. "I know this is forward," he said, "but would you maybe like to get dinner sometime? I'd love to hear more about your consulting business." My first instinct was to say no, to retreat back into my safe, comfortable shell. But then I thought of Maya's words. I thought about the possibility of a new beginning. "I'd like that very much," I said. Our first date was wonderful. We talked for hours. He was funny and smart and a gentleman. He asked me questions about my life, and he really listened to the answers. There was no hidden agenda, no games, just genuine interest. We went on a second date, and a third. It was slow. It was cautious. I didn't tell him about my past right away. I wanted him to get to know me for who I was now, not for what had happened to me. But after a couple of months, I knew it was time. I was starting to have real feelings for him, and he deserved to know the truth. I invited him over for dinner. I cooked his favorite meal. After we ate, I took a deep breath. "Ben," I said, "there's something I need to tell you about my past." I told him everything. The marriage, the betrayal, the New Year's Eve announcement, the stolen money, the court case, the prison sentences. I laid it all out for him. I was terrified he would see me as damaged goods, that he would run for the hills. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. He just looked at me. His expression was unreadable. My heart sank. This was it. This was the end. Then he reached across the table and took my hand. "Clara," he said, his voice soft. "Thank you for telling me. I can't even imagine how horrible that must have been for you." He squeezed my hand. "You are one of the strongest, most resilient people I have ever met. What you did, how you fought back, it's incredible. You're incredible." Tears streamed down my face. But this time they were tears of relief, tears of gratitude. He didn't see me as broken. He saw me as strong. "They didn't break you, Clara," he said. "They forged you." From that moment on, I knew he was different. He was a man of character, a man of integrity, a man I could trust. Our relationship blossomed. He was patient and understanding. He never pushed me. He let me set the pace. He made me feel safe. A year later, he moved in. My little house, which had once been a symbol of my independence, became a symbol of our shared future. It was filled with laughter and love. It was a home. One day we were cleaning out the attic. I came across a box of old photos from my marriage to Mark. I hadn't looked at them in years. I opened the box. There we were, a smiling, happy couple. It felt like looking at two strangers. Ben came over and looked over my shoulder. "Who's that?" he asked, pointing to a picture of me and Mark at a wedding. "That was my old life," I said. I picked up the photo. The smiling faces seemed to mock me. "Do you want to keep these?" he asked gently. I looked at the photos. I looked at Ben, his kind, loving face, my present, my future. "No," I said. I closed the box. "I don't need them anymore." We took the box out to the trash. As I let it go, I felt the last vestiges of the past fall away. I was truly free. Life continued. It was a good life, a happy life. Ben and I traveled. We built our careers. We adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy terrier named Buster. Our life was full and joyful. I rarely thought about Mark or his family. They were a closed chapter, a bad dream I had woken up from. Then, one rainy Tuesday, I got a call. It was a social worker from a local hospital. "Am I speaking with Clara Thompson?" she asked. I hadn't used that name in years. I now went by my maiden name, Miller. "This is Clara Miller," I corrected her. "I used to be Clara Thompson." "I see," the social worker said. "Ms. Miller, I'm calling from Mercy General Hospital. A patient was admitted here last night. He listed you as his emergency contact." A cold feeling washed over me. "Who is it?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "His name is Mark Thompson." My mind raced. Why would he list me? We hadn't spoken in almost a decade. "What's wrong with him?" I asked. "He was in a serious car accident," she said. "He has multiple injuries. He's stable, but he's in a lot of pain. And he's alone. He keeps asking for you." I felt nothing. No sympathy, no concern, just a weary sense of obligation. "Does he have any family?" I asked, knowing the answer. "He said his mother is unavailable," the social worker said carefully. "And he's lost contact with his sister. He said you were the only one he could think of." Of course. The great matriarch was probably still living in her garage apartment, stewing in her bitterness. Brenda was who knows where, and his father had washed his hands of all of them. In the end, after all the pain he had caused, he was crawling back to me. "I am not his emergency contact," I said, my voice firm. "We are divorced. I have not seen or spoken to him in nearly 10 years. You need to remove me from his records." "I understand, Ms. Miller," the social worker said. "But he is very distraught. He seems to have no one else. Would you at least consider speaking to him on the phone?" I hesitated. A part of me, the old people-pleasing part, felt a pang of guilt. But I had worked too hard to build this new life. I had fought too hard for my peace. I would not let him drag me back into his chaos. "No," I said. "I'm sorry, but I can't. I have nothing to say to him, and I have no desire to see him. Please respect my wishes." "I understand," she said, though she sounded disappointed. "Thank you for your time." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking slightly. Ben came into the room. He saw my face. "What's wrong, honey?" he asked. I told him about the call. He put his arms around me. "You did the right thing," he said. "He is not your responsibility anymore." "I know," I said. "But it's just the audacity, after everything he did, to still think he has some claim on me." "That's who he is, Clara," Ben said. "He's a user. He always has been. He used your money. He used your love. And now he's trying to use your conscience." He was right. I had spent 5 years of my life catering to Mark's needs, to his family's whims. I was done. I never heard from the hospital again. I don't know what happened to Mark, and I didn't try to find out. His life was no longer my concern. A few months later, Ben and I got married. It was a small ceremony, just our closest friends and family. Maya was my maid of honor. Robert and his wife were there. It was a perfect day. As Ben and I said our vows, I looked at him. This kind, decent, loving man. He had seen me at my worst. He had helped me heal. He had shown me what real love was. It wasn't about control or manipulation. It was about partnership, respect, and unwavering support. My life with Mark had been a lesson, a hard, painful lesson. But it was a lesson I had learned. I had learned my own strength. I had learned the value of true friendship. I had learned that I deserved to be happy. They had tried to write my story for me. A story of a weak, broken woman who was cast aside and forgotten. But I had taken the pen back. I had ripped out their pages and written my own ending. It was a story of resilience. A story of survival. A story of a woman who had been through the fire and had come out stronger on the other side. And as I stood there, holding my new husband's hand, I knew that the best chapters were still to come. The past was finally where it belonged. In the past. My future was bright, and it was all mine. The years that followed were filled with a quiet, beautiful normality. Ben and I built a life together that was grounded in mutual respect and deep affection. We bought a bigger house with a yard for Buster, and eventually, for our 2 children, a boy named Leo and a girl named Sophie. Being a mother was a joy I never knew I was missing. Watching my children grow, seeing the world through their eyes, filled a part of my heart I didn't know was empty. I made a promise to myself that I would never be like Eleanor. My children would know they were loved unconditionally. Their home would be a place of safety and warmth, not a battlefield of manipulation and control. My business continued to flourish. I took on a partner, allowing me to work more flexible hours and spend more time with my family. Ben's career as an architect also took off. He designed beautiful, functional spaces that made people's lives better. We were a team, in every sense of the word. Every New Year's Eve, Ben and I had a quiet celebration at home. We would cook a nice dinner, open a bottle of champagne, and talk about our hopes for the year to come. The memory of that awful night so many years ago had faded. It was no longer a source of pain. It was just a scar. a reminder of a battle I had fought and won. One afternoon, when the kids were at school, I was cleaning out some old files on my computer. I stumbled upon the folder I had created all those years ago, the one with all the evidence against Mark and his family, the bank statements, the business plan, the screenshots. I hadn't looked at them in over a decade. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened the file for Eleanor's Emporium. I read the words again. The cold, calculating plan to ruin me. I felt a distant echo of the rage I had felt that night. But it was muted now. It was like looking at an old photograph of a stranger's anger. It no longer had any power over me. I thought about them. Mark, Eleanor, Brenda. I wondered what had become of them. I had actively avoided seeking out information for years. It was a form of self-preservation. But now, with so much time past, I felt a detached curiosity. I did something I hadn't done in years. I searched their names online. The results were bleak. Brenda's name popped up in a few public records, a series of low-rent apartments in different states, a minor shoplifting charge. It was a sad, transient existence. Her grand ambitions had crumbled into dust. Eleanor's digital footprint was almost non-existent. I found an online obituary. She had passed away 2 years ago. The cause of death was listed as a heart attack. She was 68 years old. The obituary was short and stark. It mentioned she was survived by her son, Mark. There was no mention of a husband, no mention of a daughter, no mention of any accomplishments, just a name and a date. A lonely end for a woman who had craved power and control above all else. Finally, I searched for Mark. I found a recent news article from a small town a few hours away. The headline read, "Local man arrested for embezzlement." I clicked on the link. My heart sank. There was a mugshot. It was Mark. He looked old, tired, defeated. The charm was gone. The handsome face was bloated and puffy. His eyes were empty. The article said he had been working as a bookkeeper for a small construction company. He had been caught stealing money from them, siphoning off small amounts over a period of years. It wasn't a lot of money, just enough to get by. It was a pathetic, desperate crime. He had learned nothing. The pattern was the same: deceit, theft. He was still the same weak man, taking shortcuts, trying to get something for nothing. I closed the laptop. I felt a wave of sadness. Not for him, but for the waste. The waste of a life. The waste of potential. He had had everything. A wife who loved him. A comfortable life. A future. And he had thrown it all away. For what? To please his mother? For money he hadn't earned? It was a tragedy of his own making. Ben came home a little while later. He found me sitting quietly in the living room. "Everything okay?" he asked, kissing the top of my head. I told him what I had found. He sat down next to me and put his arm around me. "Are you all right?" "I am," I said. And I was. "It's just sad. They destroyed themselves. Their greed, their cruelty, it consumed them. That's what happens when you build your life on a foundation of lies," Ben said. "It eventually collapses." He was right. My life was built on a foundation of truth, of love, of hard work. It was strong. It was stable. It was real. That night, after we put the kids to bed, Ben and I sat on the porch, looking up at the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked him. "Being with me? Taking on all my baggage?" He turned to me, his expression serious. "Clara, you don't have baggage. You have a story of incredible strength. I have never for 1 second regretted being part of your story. In fact, it's my favorite story." He leaned in and kissed me. And in that kiss, I felt the depth of his love. A love that had healed me. A love that had made me whole again. The ghosts of my past were finally laid to rest. They were no longer haunting me. They were just cautionary tales. Reminders of the kind of person I never wanted to be. My life was not defined by their betrayal. It was defined by my response to it. I had chosen to fight. I had chosen to heal. I had chosen to love again. I had chosen to build a life of joy and purpose. They had wanted a new year without me. They had wanted to start fresh on a foundation of my stolen dreams, but their new beginning was a dead end. My new beginning was real. It was beautiful. And it was just getting started. As I got older, the story of what happened on that New Year's Eve became something I shared with my daughter, Sophie. Not when she was little, of course, but when she was a young woman, navigating her own relationships, trying to figure out who to trust. I wanted her to know that the world could be a cruel place, that people, even people who claim to love you, can hurt you. But I also wanted her to know that she was strong enough to handle whatever life threw at her. The most important thing, sweetie, I told her one day, is to know your own worth. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small. And don't ever, ever give anyone control over your finances. She laughed. I know, Mom. You've told me that 1,000,000 times. I'm telling you again, I said, because it's the most important lesson I ever learned. I wanted her to be independent, to be smart, to be able to stand on her own 2 feet. I had learned those lessons the hard way. I wanted to give them to her as a gift. One day, Sophie came home from college for the weekend. She had been dating a young man for about 6 months. She was smitten with him, but she seemed troubled. We were sitting in the kitchen having a cup of tea. What's on your mind? I asked. She hesitated. It's about Kevin, she said, and his family. My ears perked up. What about them? They're just a lot, she said. His mom is very involved. She has opinions about everything. What I wear, what I study. She's always making these little comments. They seem nice on the surface, but they feel sharp. A chill went down my spine. It was all too familiar. And Kevin? I asked. What does he do? He just laughs it off, she said, looking down at her cup. He says, that's just Mom. He says she means well. I took a deep breath. I had to choose my words carefully. Sophie, I said, let me tell you a story. A true story. About a man who always said, that's just Mom. And so I told her everything. In detail. The good, the bad, and the very, very ugly. I didn't spare her any of the painful parts. I wanted her to see the full picture. I wanted her to see the red flags she was missing. When I was done, she was silent. Her eyes were wide. Mom, she whispered. I had no idea. I knew you were divorced, but I never knew that. I didn't want it to define me, I said, but I want you to learn from it. We talked for a long time that night. I didn't tell her what to do. I just helped her see the parallels, the subtle manipulation, the enabling son, the controlling mother. A few weeks later, she broke up with Kevin. It was hard, she told me on the phone. He didn't understand. He said I was overreacting. But then his mom called me. She told me I was making a huge mistake, that I was throwing away the best thing that would ever happen to me. And in that moment, I saw it. I saw her. And I knew I was making the right decision. I was so proud of her. She had seen the signs, and she had acted. She had protected herself. My past, as painful as it was, had become a tool, a way to protect my daughter, a way to ensure that the cycle of abuse and manipulation ended with me. My life was a testament to the fact that you can overcome anything. You can rebuild. You can find happiness again. You can create a life that is even better than the one you lost. They thought they were ending my story that night. But all they did was write the prologue to a much better one. A story of a woman who found her voice, her strength, and her own happy ending. And that was a story I was proud to tell.